And what's this? Looks like Spiderella's going to the ball.
Like many superheroes, Spider-Man has a long line of video games. One game that holds a special place in my heart is Spider-Man 2000, as this was the reason I became a huge Spider-Man fan. However, that wasn't the only thing. In 2001, Activision and Vicarious Visions released a sequel to the Neversoft classic. It was known as Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. Often regarded as one of the most overshadowed and forgotten Spider-Man titles, Enter Electro was a game released only on the original PlayStation, unlike its predecessor which was released on multiple consoles. I, on the other hand, played the hell out of it and had fond memories for many years. But taking nostalgia away, is this game better than what it's given credit for? Well, let's take a look.
Not so fast, Electro.
Oh great, more guys with guns.
A cloaked figure walks into a place called Biotech and begins wreaking havoc, knocking out anybody in his way. The mysterious character turns out to be Electro as he steals a contraption later known as the BioNexus device. Meanwhile, during Spider-Man's patrol, the Webhead spots a robbery at another biotech building. He places a spider tracer on the motorcycle, which later reveals to be piloted by the Shocker! After Spidey defeats Shocker, he starts putting pieces of the puzzle together and later finds out about what Electro plans to do with the BioNexus. And now, he has to stop him.
What is this BioNexus device?
It amplifies the bioelectric energy in living beings. On Electro, it'll make him a god. You have to stop him, Spider-Man.
The game has some subplots that tie into the main plot. However, I think it was much more tied down than the first game. I like the idea that Spider-Man doesn't know from the start, but as the game goes on, he begins to uncover the plot. And in hindsight, it's executed pretty well, and it's a nice change of pace in storytelling. Is it original? Not really. Is it entertaining? I certainly think so. The story writing is pretty good, and Spidey gives some very clever remarks and references.
I don't need 20 years and a cape to figure out that this is probably another heist.
Overall, Enter Electro's story is well written, entertaining, and very serviceable to the gameplay.
If this were a movie, someone would spring a trap right about now! Oh yeah! Yeah, those walls are just as hard as I thought.
Enter Electro's gameplay plays very similar to its predecessor. Spider-Man goes through levels, mostly linear, either getting to a certain location or completing objectives. To get from place to place, Spider-Man can web swing, wall crawl, and web zip between certain points. Does whatever a spider can, right? When it comes to combat, it is rather simple. Spidey can dish out punches and kicks, or a combination of both if you want. He can also web up foes to either stall or defeat them. He can also use his webbing to yank foes, cover himself in a dome, wear web gloves, and fire impact webbing. Spidey can also fire impact webbing while he jumps or web swings as well. However, Spider-Man has a limited supply of web cartridges, which can be refilled by collecting blue spider pickups. Like in the first game, Enter Electro limits Spider-Man to 10 web cartridges. Spider-Man also has limited health that can be refilled by collecting health pickups. In certain levels, Spidey can also pick up ice webbing to freeze up guards, and taser webbing to help him combat drones and disable turrets. And there's also a gold pickup that gives you the spider armor. Also returning are comics, which can be found in levels in different difficulties that unlock Spider-Man comic covers in the menu. The controls are solid, with the button commands being responsive and feel exactly the same as Spider-Man 2000. Enter Electro also brings back the training stages. However, they all take place in the X-Men's Danger Room, with Rogue and Professor Xavier assisting Spidey on all of his abilities. Spider-Man 2 brings in more villains to act as bosses. However, they are more obscure, but that was due to the fact that Spider-Man 2000 had the more well-known villains. but the bosses do have a method of strategy in order to beat them. I like the fight against Shocker, as you need to beat him quickly inside a burning warehouse. Yanking boxes can beat him, but you need to get him in the right position for maximum damage. The fight against Sandman shows that melee combos won't do unless you soak him in water. And in the lizard fight, you have to make a serum mix with webbing in order to weaken him. All of this before confronting him. One of the game's newest introductions is the ability to play on the ground. Unlike Spider-Man 2000, where there was the fog that prevents Spidey from falling too low, or else it's game over, but the only thing is that the ground levels are more condensed, making them feel more like confined grids rather than free roam. The game has some really good replay value. As you progress through the game and beat it in certain difficulties, you can unlock new costumes. The game also introduces the Create a Spider feature. With this, not only can you use a different Spider-Man costume, but you can also equip him with 3 special powers, like unlimited webbing, enhanced web swing, just to name a few. I love this feature as it can bring the game to a new edge to equip Spidey with moves that are very useful in certain levels. I wish more Spider-Man games had this, but with the good stuff, there had to be some parts that I'm not a fan of. The times where Spider-Man needs to use stealth to me aren't well implemented. There isn't any form of sneaking around and the controls don't change, so there's a good chance that you will get noticed. The pacing in some levels can really drag on. Where Spider-Man 2000 was fast-paced, this game has levels like the Corkscrew that have a massive sense of climbing and timing. It's not terrible, but definitely a massive change of pace that can feel weird. Then there's the infamous level Wind Tunnel. In this level, Spidey has to stop a runaway plane and save the pilot. You need to use impact webbing to clear the barrels, but Spider-Man gives you a vague hint on how to pass the level. I had to look up and find that you need to web up the propellers till they stop, but you have to do it with enough room or else it becomes an episode of Mayday Air Disasters. All I want to say is this: how the fuck was I supposed to figure this out even as a 10-year-old and with no online walkthroughs? The last issue I have is the game overall feels shorter and easier. There's not as many levels as Spider-Man 2000, and I'm able to go through the game with ease, even on normal. But then again, that may be due to my experience with it. But with 4 difficulty settings, maybe it could still be challenging with hard. It's possible.
Enough said.
Anyways, in closing, Enter Electro's gameplay brings a lot of familiarity to those who played Spider-Man 2000, but despite its setbacks in length, it still manages to be both fun and entertaining.
So where did they come from?
Look, if you let me go now, I promise I'll come back and play tomorrow!
Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro manages to make a few upgrades. The game has a more realistic visuals as buildings in the background and its texture have more detail. The ground levels manage to bring in details in the streets, such as light poles and cars. Spider-Man himself has some new details to his model, with webs over the red parts of his costume and webbing underneath his arms. The enemies in the game also have a realistic look to them, but their in-game model recycles the animation of the henchman and bank robber. Another thing is that Hammerhead's model isn't 100% consistent. In the cutscenes, his mouth is shut and he has a red tie. But in the game, when Spider-Man faces him, he has clenched teeth and a blue tie! What the hell?! The game's cutscenes are a step up from Spider-Man 2000. There's more detail to the environments and the characters animate much more smoothly. Plus, they now have fingers, as opposed to the predecessor where the characters wave their fist. Not to mention that Enter Electro has a more realistic look, whereas the predecessor had a more comic book look. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. Both look really nice. Interestingly, Vicarious Visions uses the Spider-Man model from the Dreamcast and PC version of Spider-Man 2000. The only downside to the cutscenes is like 2000, the mouse don't move at all, but that may be just nitpicking there. But alas, I must once again address the elephant in the room. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro was one of several games that was affected by the result of the September 11th terrorist attacks. The game was originally released on August 26, 2001, but when the 9/11 attacks happened, Vicarious Visions had to recall the game from store shelves and make changes to the game so that there were no references to 9/11. Several levels in the game were renamed, some of the cutscenes were renamed or altered, the start of the level Hangar 18 was altered as well, and the final boss was originally set to be on top of the World Trade Center, but it too was altered to a generic building. Weirdly enough, that wasn't the only thing Spider-Man related that was affected by 9/11.
Well, what a coincidence.
Regardless, I think Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro has a solid presentation for PlayStation standards with very fun level design.
Little street hoops, anyone?
Personally, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro has one of the catchiest and most kick-ass soundtracks I've heard. The soundtrack comprises of an electric-type music with solid guitar riffs. There are also times where the music goes for more subtle and simple in levels like Gangland. It may not be as memorable as its predecessor, but the tunes provide a catchy beat that changes intensity when you confront thugs. Most of the sound effects with Spider-Man returned from Spider-Man 2000, such as swinging, shooting webs, and wall crawling. The sound effects mixes well with the music, plus being able to alter the volumes on both the music and sound works too. Surprisingly, the only footsteps you hear in gameplay is Spider-Man's. None of the thugs have footstep sounds, so you won't hear where they're coming from unless they yell, "Hey, what are you doing? What the?" The drones, on the contrary, have this droning sound as they patrol. I gotta be honest, even after all these years, the voice acting is still solid. Rino Romano voices Spider-Man after voicing him in Spider-Man 2000 and the short-lived Spider-Man Unlimited. And to be honest, this guy is so underrated. Next to Tobey Maguire, Josh Keaton, and Christopher Daniel Barnes, Romano is solid, bringing in both the witty side with some clever one-liners and the serious side understanding the dangers of Electro's plan.
Don't know where you think you're going. I was just gonna see if they had any more of those Empire State Building snow globes. Hey, do you want one? Hope I'm not too late getting to that museum. What do I do about the doctor, though? Electro probably still needs the doctor to show him how the device works, so she should be safe for now. Let's hope Electro's as dim as he looks.
One other thing, if you fall too low in the rooftop levels, instead of Spider-Man screaming, he gives this sarcastic "wonderful," another result of 9/11.
Wonderful.
The rest of the cast were comprised mostly of Jennifer Hale, Darren Norris, and Dee Bradley Baker, who all do well. My favorites are Hammerhead, who has a tone of a 1930s mobster, and it's very fitting.
Enthusiasms, enthusiasms. What are mine? What is it which gives me joy? Destroying Spider-Man.
The other is Shocker. I like the gruff tone that doesn't sound scratchy or forced.
Get up, wall crawler. I'm not done beating on you yet.
Shocker! Nice to see you too.
Although, I honestly believe that Electro can be quite annoying.
Not so fast, bug! Or tonight, you're not gonna be the only one who gets squashed!
And it's also nice to hear the late Stan Lee returning as the narrator.
Welcome, true believers. Stan Lee here to bring you yet another scintillating tale of superhero daring-do. Now it appears that trouble has found our arachnid hero yet again. So get ready for a pulse-pounding, web-slinging tale of shocking revelations.
In summary, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro delivers well with an underrated soundtrack, great sound effects, and solid voice acting.
I've heard about running into a brick wall, but this is ridiculous. Hey, Electro! Who's got the power now? There have to be some real criminals for you guys to catch, right?
Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, on the whole, is a pretty good game even after all these years. The game's story and controls are really good, the Create a Spider feature is a great way to add replay value, and the voice acting is strong. However, it is a short experience compared to Spider-Man 2000, and a lot of potential and content was removed due to 9/11, but as long as the game is fun, I'll be okay with it. If you enjoyed Spider-Man 2000, give this one a go and judge for yourself. It may not be as good as Spider-Man 2000, but it's still a good and fun experience.
Sorry, boys and girls, but I don't think I'm gonna let you arrest me today.
And so I rate Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro a gold medal.
Until next time, true believers, Excelsior!